Yeah. No. It was going for about half an hour, but now we are back on, so I'm live. Check 1, 2. Let's get this going. I have no idea what happened there. But we are now in there. Back out of this one. Want to make sure that we're running cleanly. And to be honest, I don't even know why that one, yeah. James, thanks for stopping through, man, for the second time. Okay, let's see. Okay. Gonna give about 30 seconds while people trickle in. Yeah, thanks again for stopping by. Sorry about that last one. It was weird. Like, at first I thought that the battery had died, but then I was looking at the battery. It's like, no, we're fine. So yeah, I don't know why that one went out the way that it did, but we are back on. I'm gonna definitely just pick up where we left off. Okay, I think we are good. Can you guys hear me okay? Just want to confirm that. Jay Foreman, thank you once again. Benny Bronx, thanks for coming through. James, yeah, good looking out. Hot facts for Robert Reese. Thanks for rejoining us. DJ Johnson, should Tank fight Shakur next? Tank should fight Shakur, but not next. There's too much business to handle. Well, I mean, if they make the fight, great. I would not complain. Benjamin Tucker, good looking out. Thanks for coming through. Gross through Calisthenics. Thank you for coming through once again. As soon as the screen went black, I'm like, uh-oh. So then I'm like, thinking, okay, how quickly can I get another one fired up? Because again, I thought that it was like a battery issue, but then it turned out not to be the case. So I hope that that doesn't happen again, because it's still a bit of a mystery as to why it did. But thank you for stopping by, once again. Tank fighting Shakur Stevenson would be stylistically great. Shakur Stevenson's obviously looking phenomenal. So I've got no complaints about that fight, especially, I mean, what did we get from Tank thus far? Or at least in the last few fights, we've gotten Tank versus Raleigh Romero, Isaac Cruz, good fighter, but Isaac Cruz, Mario Barrios, Leo Santa Cruz, legend, but, upper weight class, older, and so forth. So I would have no problem with Tank versus Shakur Stevenson. I tend to think that Shakur Stevenson is about to, if they can get the business together and make it work, would fight Joe Cordina, who just last weekend unexpectedly knocked out Kenichi Ogawa to capture the IBF 130-pound title. So Ogawa had beaten Azinga Fuzili, whose only loss at that time was against Shavkat Rakhimov, the guy who Jojo Diaz fought to a draw after losing his belt on the scales. So there was a vacant title fight between Ogawa and Fuzili. Ogawa beat Fuzili. This was just a few months ago, and Ogawa just defended the title against the Welsh fighter, Joe Cordina. Joe Cordina, known to be kind of a sweet science guy, it was Ogawa who was supposed to come into that fight with the power, with the thunder in his gloves. Well, Ogawa got knocked out by somebody who I think is about to be the next UK star because of how he just won that fight in Wales. It was just sensational in front of his home crowd. I was, first of all, kind of surprised that Ogawa agreed to fight the challenger on the challenger's home soil. But regardless, I think that Joe Cordina might be an attractive next opponent for Shakur Stevenson. So Shakur Stevenson can capture a third belt at 130. Not that the belts are the end-all be-all, but it does seem to be important for Shakur Stevenson to kind of clean up at 130 before going to 135. So, you know, again, if they do make Shakur Stevenson versus Gervonta Davis, that would be a sensational matchup. It would be the best fighter that either of them have fought by far. I don't think it's going to happen because I'm still skeptical on how Gervonta Davis is about to handle this, the end of this Mayweather contract. I don't know if he's going to re-up with Mayweather. I don't know if he's going to stick with PBC, but outside of Mayweather Promotions, or if he's going to go somewhere completely different. But I mean, I just don't have evidence to believe that he's going to start locking horns with all of the guys that we want to see him fight. But if they do make the fight, fantastic. I wouldn't mind seeing Shakur Stevenson against Joe Cordina. I think that Shakur Stevenson's probably going to win that fight. You know, I'll look at a lot more Joe Cordina, you know, action if that's the fight that they make and we end up doing a preview on that. But Tank Davis, I think more eyeballs are on him in terms of basically, you know, after seeing Devin Haney become undisputed, we're all kind of looking at Tank Davis like, okay, what you gonna do? Are you gonna fight a Lomachenko? Are you gonna fight Ryan Garcia? Or are you gonna keep on doing what you've been doing, fighting in the shallow pool at 135 on PBC only? Brandon Jackson, thank you for coming through. Benjamin Tucker says Tank doesn't want Stevenson. What weight would they fight at? So I think that this would have to be 135. Of course, Tank Davis came from 130. But I think that, you know, he's almost 30 years old now. I think that I don't think we're going to see Tank back at 130. He dropped the title at 130 to go up to 135 and basically stake his claim there. So I think that it would require Shakur Stevenson going up to 135. Unless Gervonta Davis is that attracted to two belts, the two belts that Shakur Stevenson's holding at 130, and takes that as incentive to come back down to 130. I just don't think that that's the most likely scenario. But in terms of Tank not wanting Stevenson, you sound pretty convinced that Stevenson wins that match, right? I'm not so sure. I do think that Shakur Stevenson boxes brilliantly. I just think that there is always something to be said about having a devastating equalizer. And the fact that Gervonta Davis is holding the atomic bombs in his gloves, you only have to be right once. You could get outboxed for like 6 rounds, 8 rounds. I mean, we've seen Deontay Wilder lose just about every round in a fight that ends in a knockout for Deontay Wilder. Not to say that Gervonta Davis is that knockout reliant, but can he win rounds against Shakur Stevenson? That'll be more difficult. It's almost like you would think that he's got to hurt Stevenson to win a round against Stevenson. But I don't know. We haven't seen Stevenson fight somebody with the athleticism or the hand speed, really, even though I think that Nakatila has a dangerous right hand. We saw Nakatila do damage against Miguel Burchelt recently. But we haven't seen Shakur Stevenson fight anyone near the caliber of Tank Davis. So that whole, hey, you're fighting somebody who's unlike anybody you've ever fought before, it cuts both ways if we're looking at Tank versus Stevenson. Ayano Aishi Yandere Chan, thank you for stopping by. Thank you very much for stopping by. Let's see. Jay Foreman says, stylistically, I like Tank more, but Haynie has definitely done more. No comparison in resumes. Tank needs to step it up. Yeah, I agree with that. So stylistically, you like Tank more than Haynie, as in Tank is a more a more entertaining and exciting fighter to watch in the ring, right? You're more likely to get fireworks in a Tank Davis fight. Is that what you mean by you liking the style more, or are you saying that you like the style more in terms of its in terms of that particular style giving the fighter a greater likelihood of winning the fight? Because in terms of winning the fight, I feel like Devin Haney is one of the best round winners in the game, pound for pound. But yeah, so it depends on what we mean by stylistically. But I assume that you're meaning stylistically in terms of the entertainment factor and enjoying watching the guy fight. In which case, I totally agree with that. Jose Benavidez is fighting Danny Swift Garcia. Yeah, that's right, Benny Bronx. And I'm not in love with that matchup. I figured that Danny Garcia, that his first 154-pound fight wasn't going to be against, a top 6 154 guy. So maybe this is a good get acclimated to the weight class type of fight. Even though, Jose Benavidez, this is the older brother of David Benavidez, didn't look good in his last couple fights. Like he seems like he's never really recovered, not so much from the Terrence Crawford fight, but from getting shot in the leg, beforehand. I don't think that Jose Benavidez has been the same. It just seems like we're seeing a reduced version of him. So it's going to be interesting if Danny Garcia beats Jose Benavidez, which I think I would favor him to, what he does at 154 beyond that point. James said that Raleigh fight was a joke. It was an entertaining joke, though, right? I didn't like the matchup. I thought that it was going to be quick. I actually thought that it was more competitive than it ended up being. But I think that you pointed out that it wasn't that competitive. And it wasn't as competitive as some were making it out to be, if I recall correctly. Benny Bronx said, I think Tank versus Oscar Valdez is a good matchup. Whew. See, I don't think Oscar Valdez, look, I think that he could pressure Tank, and I think he could win some rounds maybe against Tank, but could Oscar Valdez beat Isaac Cruz? Could Oscar Valdez go up to 135 and beat Isaac Cruz? I don't know that the answer is yes. I remember Oscar Valdez having difficulty with Scott Quigg. I don't think Tank Davis versus Oscar Valdez goes well for Oscar Valdez. Yes, he has a chin, but I think that anybody's chin, it eventually becomes destructible. There's no such, even Mayorga ended up having a busted up chin after he got hit so many times, Dabrowski, thank you for coming through. Yeah. We got Dabrowski in the house. How do you think Inoue does at 122 or even 126? 126, not well yet. 122, I think he does well. I think he does well depending on the opponent. I think he beats Danny Roman. I think him and Stephen Fulton right now is a toss-up. I think that the Monster and Stephen Fulton is a toss-up. I think that him versus, I think Brandon Figueroa would be a problem. If he can't knock Figueroa out early, I think Brandon Figueroa could be a nightmare for the Monster. Let me know what you guys think about that one. Who would you guys pick between Inoue and Brandon Figueroa? Yeah, Cruz versus Valdez would be entertaining. I agree, James. Yeah, Benny Bronx, a bloodbath. It'll sell. I agree with that. Yeah, someone's going to get dropped. The thing is, I think that Tank Davis is an underrated defensive fighter. In fact, I think that he's an underrated sweet science style fighter. And plus, he's a lefty. It takes people a little while to get acclimated. And, the dude stopped Mario Barrios. I just don't think Valdez will hold up as he's getting hit by Tank. Because I think that you got to factor in the hand speed gap as well. Yeah, I'm trying to envision a way where it goes well for Oscar Valdez. Maybe if Tank Davis hurts his hand like he did against Isaac Cruz, then all bets are off, right? You think Dabrowski says, I think Brandon Figueroa might be able to weather the storm against the Monster Inoue and put it on Inoue late. See, I see that as being a real possibility. I agree with that. I was saying earlier that his fight style is he's like a heavy blanket that's just draped over the opponent, that's just covering the opponent. It just seems like he's on top and over the opponent for the whole fight. Just a handful. So we haven't talked too much Cambosos Haynie yet. And I don't know how much you guys want to get into it because of the lopsided nature of the fight. So we can either talk about the aftermath of Cambosos versus Haynie, now that Haney's the undisputed champion at lightweight. We could talk about the bad game planning as well. George Cambosos, look, the first thing I wanted to talk about is the bad judging. I don't want to let the 8 rounds to 4 scorecards just get swept under the rug. In fact, I think I want to do like a 5 to 8 minute standalone video about the rotten judging in that, because you know, I ran like a YouTube poll, right? And about, you know, maybe 40 something to 50 like respondents. How did you see the fight? Did you see it 12-0 Haney, 11-1, 10-2, 9-3, or other 8-4, or even closer, more towards George Cambosos? I had maybe one vote out of nearly 50 say that they saw it 8-4. How did 2 out of the 3 judges who are tasked with judging the fight see it 8-4? Anybody who was watching the fight, it was hard. Like, I gave George Cambosos like 2 rounds. And even those 2 rounds, I felt like there was a little bit of, well, he did better than he did in the other rounds. So I'm going to give that one Cambosos because it could have gone either way. And my scorecards are starting to look uncomfortably lopsided. So let me give this one to George Cambosos. That's how I arrived at 10-2. If I was just being totally straight about it, it could have been 11-1 Devin Haney. I've heard a lot of 12-0s Devin Haney. So for the judges to look at it as 8-4 Devin Haney, you had to basically take any round that George Cambosos was showing any sign of life, any round that George Cambosos landed anything flush and cleanly, and just say that because he was doing better than Haney, better than he was in the other rounds that were more dominant towards Haney, let's give George Cambosos that round. That's the only way that I could see an 8-4 scorecard. It's almost like the judges, as they were going round by round, was like looking at they were looking at the scorecard and say, and like they were almost scared to turn it in as they were looking at 5 rounds in, 6 rounds in. It's almost like they were scared to say, "Damn, this one is 11-1," and they said, "No." They must have thought that they were getting something wrong. Like, I can't possibly be seeing this right and seeing Devin Haney winning all the rounds. So let's call a close round for George Cambosos. And you know what? A lot of these bad scorecards, they get swept under the rug because if the result ends up being that the guy who deserves to win the fight won the fight, then it's almost like all is well, nothing to see here. It's not a controversy anymore. But I look at it as being almost as egregious when you get a scorecard like we got with 2 judges saying 8-4, as when we get an actual robbery where the wrong guy wins the fight. But it's almost like we forget about it because the right guy won the fight. So it's like no harm, no foul. That should not be the case. And I think that those judges should be interviewed. I feel like those judges should be tasked with watching the fight on ESPN app, on their ESPN app, and then reporting back. And I want to ask them, how did you see the fight after a second time watching it? And see if they arrive at 8-4 again. I'm truly curious as to how they would have seen that. DJ Johnson said Cambosos can't box. So I think that he's a marginally good boxer. I think he's a good fighter. Decent boxer, good athlete. He's got athletic punches, but I forgot who pointed it out in the comments because I was talking so much about the hand speed that they were saying that we need to consider the legs in this one. And that's really where this fight was won and lost, also with the reach of the jab and the rhythm of the jab. There were just so many things that Haney was doing that was keeping Cambosos off rhythm and unable to get anything started. But George Cambosos, moderate boxer. It's going to be interesting to see who he fights next and whether he actually exercises this rematch clause. You know, I would love to be a fly on the wall in some of the conversations that are being had right now between Lou DiBella, that's George Cambosos' actual promoter. You know, Bob Arum's not truly his promoter. Bob Arum is top rank and they're tied in with ESPN. So to, you know, fight on the platform, it's almost like Lou DiBella has to work with Bob Arum to get that together. But I'm curious to see how those conversations are playing out. What is Lou DiBella's actual stance? What does he want? Does he want the immediate rematch in Melbourne, Australia, given what we just saw? Or should I say, in spite of what we just saw in the first fight? And I feel like Bob Arum is a little bit more of a straight shooter, where he's like he's older, he's a curmudgeon. He's going to be like, oh, no, you know, George Cambosos are going to get eaten alive. No sense in making that fight. Can they give him step-aside money to then make a better fight for Devin Haney, like Haney versus Lomachenko. If Lomachenko leaves his home country of Ukraine, where he's currently in the reserve, as they are fighting a literal war right now. Again, I don't think we should make any assumptions. I don't know if we'll ever see prime Lomachenko in the ring again. He's going into his mid-30s. Who knows when we're going to see him back in the ring? But are they going to try to give Devin Haney or George Cambosos some step-aside money? I think that if it was another promotion, I think that if it was like Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, he'd be more likely to do that, to work something like that out. But because it seems like Top Rank, they're about cutting costs. Like if you notice the ESPN promotion, and my cousin Benjamin Tucker had pointed this out, ESPN is doing a terrible job at promoting boxing. Like you don't see in their, I mean, we've got the NBA playoffs going right now, and you don't see like in commercials and the little graphic on the bottom of the screen. Shout out Benjamin Tucker for bringing this up when we talked a couple of days ago. You don't see them advertising the upcoming super fights on the major sports taking place on ESPN. It's like ESPN is treating boxing as it's like, it's just not giving boxing a lot of love, and I'm assuming not a lot of budget. And they are basically, Disney, ESPN is funding Top Rank's ESPN boxing endeavors right now. So I don't know if Bob Arum and team have step-aside money to pay George Cambosos to not make the rematch happen. But the problem is there's such little appetite for that rematch, it's almost hard to even see that fight being made, because I don't even know if the Aussies want to see that fight happen again, because it was, to our eyes, an 11-1, 10-2 style fight. Benny Bronx said Arum is gonna get either Loma or Teofimo versus Haynie. So Benny Bronx, you think that Arum is uninterested in the rematch, the contractually stipulated rematch between George Cambosos, or should I now say Devin Haney versus George Cambosos? Because I tend to agree with that. I don't think that Top Rank has a huge appetite for making a fight that nobody wants to see. So the other poll that I ran a couple days ago was, who do you want to see Devin Haney fight next in light of becoming the undisputed champion? And I got a lot of, I would say the vast majority, or not vast, but the slight majority was Lomachenko. That was like the number one guy, followed very closely by Gervonta Tank Davis, and then lesser, like a smaller percentage for Ryan Garcia, and then a smaller percentage for other, and literally 0% for George Cambosos Jr. So out of all the respondents, there were 5 other opponents that they wanted to see, and they all, said, most people again said Lomachenko, followed by Gervonta Davis, followed by Ryan Garcia, followed by probably Teofimo Lopez or other, and nobody wanted to see a rematch between Devin Haney and George Cambosos. So yeah, Top Rank and ESPN, they're going to have to figure something out. Lou DiBella, George Cambosos, they're going to have to figure something out, because it's a tough fight to sell right now based on what we just saw. DJ Johnson said, I gave Cambosos no rounds. He got his butt whooped. Yeah, I agree with that. And it was almost stunning. Like, you're watching the first few rounds thinking, okay, when is he going to turn it up? When is he going to make this like a scrap, an actual fight? And when is he going to stop trying to sweet science Devin Haney and waiting for Devin Haney to throw something, to throw a counter on top of? And I'm trying to think of what Cambosos could have done differently to skew the fight more in his favor, and I haven't really come up with any good ideas yet. I mean, he could have worked the body more. He could have tried to be first, but then you would assume that Devin Haney would counter that. What else could he have done? Maybe do more punching in the clinch. I was surprised that Devin Haney was actually, when they were like tied up, it was Devin Haney who was doing those borderline rabbit punches instead of George Cambosos. I thought Cambosos was going to be the scrappier guy who's going to try to get his licks in at any opportunity he could, and that it would be Devin Haney that would be looking for the cleaner fight. But yeah, we saw none of the spirit that we saw of George Cambosos versus Teofimo Lopez against Devin Haney. But a lot of that was because of the styles, and that Devin Haney wasn't foolishly jumping into the pocket, launching telegraphed right hands the whole fight, Yeah, Jay Foreman said Cambosos was disappointing, probably no game plan, much less a plan A, B, and C. The max I could give Cambosos was 3 rounds. I agree. That is the absolute match. And I was really trying to rack my brain and trying to be more open-minded in terms of how many of those potentially close to being considered swing rounds you could tip into Cambosos' favor. I do believe that 3 is the max. I think 2 is the 1 or 2 is the more fair call. 3 would be the max. 4, I still think is unjustifiable. James said Canelo versus Bivol was closer than Cambosos versus Haney. And you know what? It was equally crappy judging too. Terrible judging. 115 to 1, like really? That's a fight that could go either way. And the judge or judges, was it, in Canelo versus Bivol, 115 to 113. Damn near criminal. Seriously, I feel like some of these judges should be interviewed or be tasked with rewatching the fight and then issuing a scorecard on the second watch. And you know what? I'm not even saying that their second watch scorecard should change the original result. I think we just should be entitled to seeing what they really thought that fight looked like upon further review, you know? Just to remind us and let us know that we're not the crazy ones for seeing it how we saw it. Robert Reese, hot facts with Robert Reese, had it a shutout. Yeah, you're not wrong for saying that. You've got to be creative to give Cambosos some of these rounds. James Backlet, he said he wants to see Nakatani versus Haynie. So we've got to first see what Nakatani looks like. First of all, Nakatani is somebody who's going to come forward. But after what Lomachenko put Nakatani through, we've got to see what Nakatani looks like. Because remember, even in that fight that he won against the Puerto Rican former Olympic medalist who's in trouble for murder right now, in all types of trouble. Like, we might never see him free again. The name's not coming to me. One of y'all is going to know the Puerto Rican fighter I'm talking about, the Olympian who got knocked out by Nakatani in one of the Fight of the Year candidates. Nakatani took a beating in that fight as well. He scored the knockout, but he took a lot of damage in that fight. But so I want to see Nakatani fight somebody else before getting in the ring with the sweet science master right now, Devin Haney, you know? But yes, stylistically, that is an interesting fight. I agree with that. Edward Espinosa, what's good? Thanks for coming through. Heck yeah. James said, yeah, Bivol had to win that last round. Yeah, that's the thing. If Bivol doesn't win the 12th round, he doesn't walk out with the esteem of beating, thank you, Dabrowski said, Felix Verdejo. Thank you for that. Yes, that was a good fight between him and Nakatani. But yeah, it was a close fight. And could you imagine how much boxing would have embarrassed itself if Bivol wasn't awarded the win against Canelo? That would have been indescribably bad. Like, you would have to really think about what other robberies would have met the threshold that one meets. But yeah, you know, if this Haney versus Cambosos was one more round the other way and it ended up being like 2 judges seeing it 115, 113, like, it's indescribable. It's really, really bad judging. And I don't know what the solution is. I've heard a lot of different suggestions, and I'm not opposed to any one of them. I don't know. Should they have a screen watching it too? Because the thing is, if you're sitting outside of the ring, but you're on one side on the ring apron, you basically are missing the action if the fight's taking place on that side of the ring, that side of the ring, that side of the ring. Basically, you're only seeing like one angle for the whole fight. At least as televised viewers, we're seeing multiple angles. And we're also able to, you know, hear certain shots. We have the benefit of replay, which I don't know if replay should be used either. I mean, we do see a lot of punches that look like they're landing. When you see it on replay in slow motion, you see, oh no, Jermell Charlo caught that punch by Brian Castano or something like that. Stan Tucker said, bob and weave, he couldn't avoid the jab. Yeah, okay, so Cambosos could have shown more head movement, but I think that you have to get the rhythm down. You've got to get the rhythm down to start moving in a way where you're not going to be eating jabs. Because what I'm envisioning, if you've got the head movement, but no idea based on the feints and everything like that, when the punch is coming, you end up looking like Jim Carrey. In which movie was that? Was it the Mask or Cable Guy? One of those movies where Jim Carrey was like bobbing and weaving, and he was like that's what I'm picturing. If it's head movement without getting the rhythm down, you know? But yeah, definitely more head movement in the famous words of Ronda Rousey's trainer as she was getting obliterated by Amanda Nunes. Oh, we got no volume right now? Can you guys hear me okay? Here, let me see. If you guys can't hear me okay, say yeah. Cool. All right, we're good. Yeah, yeah, let me know because I have another screen. So I'm kind of seeing like when the screen freezes up and stuff, I kind of have an idea when it drops off. But volume-wise, I'll have like no idea. So yeah, thank you. So what I was saying was if it's head movement, and let me know if I'm repeating myself because I don't know what was audible and what wasn't, but I was saying that if it's head movement that George Cambosos started showing, as Stan Tucker pointed out, he said more head movement. I was saying that you would then look like Jim Carrey in The Mask or The Cable Guy, whichever one. Oh, somebody was saying no volume. Okay, no volume. The judges here, no volume. No judges should watch the fight on a screen with no volume. Okay, yeah. I agree with that. So what would the pros and cons be to having no volume? Do we benefit as viewers hearing some of the action, hearing when a punch lands, or is it still obscuring whether or not the punch lands? Because we don't, if it's a thud, that thud could have been the side of somebody's head or it could have been a glove. We really don't know the difference. Elder Jean-Baptiste, what's going on? Thanks for coming through. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's good to, yeah, thank you. Yeah, for a while I thought that there was some discrepancy, some audio discrepancy. Glad we avoided that one. So just a couple more things before we adjourn. A couple pieces of news. We talked a little, the Charlo back injury, not good. Stephen Fulton dominating Danny Rahman. Ogawa being upset via knockout by Joe Cordina. Junior Fa being upset via knockout by Lucas Brown. Should we do a pound for pound update? Because, well, you know what? We'll save the pound for pound update for next week. But one thing I want to say about pound for pound, because I'm still kind of considering whether Devin Haney should be in the top 10 pound for pound. A lot of people feel like it's automatic. And I get you if you think, I mean, the guy's undisputed at lightweight, that should automatically put him into the pound for pound top 10. I get what you're saying. The issue I have with this is, okay, belts matter. They matter. Your strength of schedule and your quality of opponents matter. But, all roads to undisputed aren't the same. So check this out. If one fighter beats one guy, captures his belt, beats another guy to capture his belt, and then beats another guy to capture his belt, and then gets beat by another guy who's coming in with one belt while you came in with three, yes, he does become undisputed for beating you. Yes, he does capture all of the belts. But should the heavy lifting matter? Like that, I mean, that's largely the reason why Lomachenko was able to hang around in a lot of people's top 10s, even after losing to Teofimo Lopez, and then beating Nakatani and Richard Comey. So, yes, Devin Haney beat George Cambosos, who a lot of us are now assessing or reassessing. Well, how good is George Cambosos, right? We're kind of having those sort of conversations, and you hear a lot of the boxing talking heads having those same conversations. So Haney has beaten Linares, he's beaten Jojo Diaz, and now he's beaten George Cambosos to capture, 3 of the 4 belts, almost all the belts, along with his WBC title. So he is undisputed. So accomplishments and accolades wise, because it's such a rare feat, if you feel like that in itself, plus not to mention the way that he dominated George Cambosos, because the way you win kind of matters too. He hardly lost a round. So if those are the reasons you want to put him in the top 10, I agree with that. Again, the only issue I have is at the end of the day, he beat George Cambosos. And if we're talking pound for pound best, well, at lightweight, we still have so much unfinished business. I mean, George Cambosos beat Teofimo Lopez, which had us reassessing how good is Teofimo Lopez. The one thing that we knew and still know, I feel, is how good Lomachenko is. We know that. And we know Devin Haney is an exceptional boxer, but is beating George Cambosos to become undisputed the same as Jermell Charlo beating Castaño, and then beating, before that, beating Jason Rosario, beating, Tony Harrison, beating just everybody who he had to beat to earn a share of the title, knocking out Erickson Lubin in the first round. I don't feel like those paths are equal. So right now, I don't know if Devin Haney enters my personal top 10 pound for pound. Let me see, get to it. Okay, so, okay, I see some interesting commentary. James said, yeah, crowd reacts to action, not knowing if they actually scored. Yeah. So when the crowd, starts to get loud, the judges, I feel, are being influenced by that. Yeah, certainly. And it's tough to tell, because sometimes you just see somebody throwing hands and you're assuming that they're doing some damage and doing some work because you see the hands moving. It's tough to tell what's actually landing a lot of the times. Jay Foreman said, I would put Haynie in the top 10, but it shouldn't be automatic. Depends on the strength of schedule and other things. Yeah, I agree with that. That's fair. So, yeah, Stan Tucker said, I need more evidence for Haynie for him to make the top 10. Yeah, we've got all the guys who we've been wanting to see any one of these seemingly great lightweights fight. All of those guys are still there. Most of them are still undefeated. I mean, Lomachenko's not undefeated, but it's Lomachenko. Teofimo is not undefeated, and it looks like he's going to be going to 140. Gervonta Tank Davis, as long as he's there and that's unresolved business. Ryan Garcia, a little bit less so, but he's still there, undefeated. We'll see what he does against Javier Fortuna. But yeah, there's still unresolved business at 135. But hey, it was a huge accomplishment either way. I just don't know if it merits automatic entry into the top 10. MAW in the house. What is going on? Thank you for stopping by. Edward Espinoza says, what do you think about people's recency bias when coming up with their pound for pound list? That's what I try not to do, is to go with the new hot flavor of the week, because boxing's a cyclical thing, right? People are on schedules. If they fight 2 times a year, it's almost like, okay, who's in season right now and who's in season today? Shakur Stevenson, Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney, right? So since Lomachenko, it was months since he beat Richard Comey. I feel like people are kind of cooling off on how they value Lomachenko, right? So yeah, we get that type of, and Teofimo Lopez, nobody has him in their season right now. So yes, it's recency bias based. Look, like Josh Taylor, for instance, he had a close call. I thought he lost to Catterall, but Josh Taylor is still in my top 10 because of everything that he did before that to become undisputed, beating Regis Prograis, being the first and only to beat Regis Prograis, being the first to beat Ivan Baranchyk, and who else did he beat? Jose Ramirez, being the first and still only guy to beat Jose Ramirez. So I'm like, he has one bad night against Jack Catterall, who none of us were giving Jack Catterall a real shot at beating Josh Taylor, but he had a bad night, gets gifted a decision win, and suddenly, like, he's nobody now? Like, Josh Taylor is not deserving of top 10? I'm just saying, I think that all the heavy lifting that he did before that questionable decision win, he still belongs in my top 10. Elder Jean-Baptiste says he's top 10. No, but Devin held his belt longer, the longest, because they avoided him. Yeah, that's true. Devin Haney, I believe, is one of the most, and has been one of the most avoided fighters, elite fighters in the game. Like, he's not an automatic payday. Like, if Canelo was not a payday, nobody would be trying to fight Canelo, but it's a Canelo sweepstakes, so everybody would love to fight Canelo. Devin Haney, not so much. Devin Haney is like a younger Demetrius Andrade, where, if you beat him, you're not going to look good beating him, and it's a big, 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 big question mark on whether you're going to beat him. So, lucky for Devin Haney, he was still like in his early 20s, because he's a very young fighter still. He just got started way, way, way early and started turning up the opponent quality, fight by fight early. But Demetrius Andrade is about to enter his mid-30s and still hasn't fought the pound-for-pound opponent quality that 23-year-old Devin Haney has already, fought. So similar avoidance, but Devin Haney he needed this fight so badly against George Cambosos. And, credit to George Cambosos for fighting Devin Haney. I know it wasn't his first choice. He wanted to fight Vasily Lomachenko, but that couldn't work out because of the global war reasons. So he accepted the fight with Devin Haney. Plus, George Cambosos wanted to become undisputed. So there was certainly something to gain there. But props to him for inviting Devin Haney out to Australia. Shame on the judges for coming close to robbing Devin Haney. But there was immense pressure. Remember how you felt when they were singing the different national anthems? You see young Devin Haney, who just always has that kind of deer in headlights look. He looks like a kid out there, right? So you could just imagine the weight on his shoulders. There was obviously weight on Cambosos' shoulders as well. But you're looking at Devin Haney before the opening bell sounds, and you're just wondering, is he going to be able to operate in a mature, disciplined way? And if nothing else, boy, does Devin Haney keep his composure. I have never seen an Australian crowd silenced to that level. Immense pressure. And for him to just operate and execute round over round the way that he made it look like it was child's play. He made it look like it was a bad sparring session. So yes, he has been avoided, but I still want to see him beat at least one of those other elite guys at 135. Let's see. MAW says Devin's in my pound for pound list because he's undisputed, but I need to review. Yeah, I need to go back and review. We'll get more into pound for pound next week. James says, every time I watch Haney fight, I have more questions rather than getting answers. So I remember you saying that with the comments, and I know that I responded to that one today. So if I want to ask you to elaborate on that, because I think I get what you're saying right there. Is it that he's seemingly incapable of putting his foot on the gas? Is it the increased perception that he's not heavy-handed? It was also the tactics you were pointing out. James had pointed out that Devin Haney was ducking to George Cambosos' hip level, to where when you're coming up in the boxing game, you're advised, and I think that you'll be able to elaborate on whether this is technically an illegal tactic or just an ill-advised tactic, to put your head around the guy's waist where you're only exposing basically the part of your head that the opponent can't hit. So when George Cambosos would try to counter the jab or something and throw a right hand on top of it or a left hook, which to Haney's credit, he had that glove up all night. I was wondering about that because he dropped his hand a few times against Jorge Linares. He responsibly kept that thing up all night long, or all morning long if you were in Australia. But Devin Haney, as soon as George Cambosos would get his punches going, he would duck to the side, which I thought George Cambosos would then start placing his punches lower, anticipating that Haney's going to duck to that side. But between that and the borderline rabbit punches, I think that's what James is referring to in terms of what he wasn't really feeling, in terms of how Devin Haney approached this fight. How do I think T.O. versus Josh Taylor goes? Whew. Josh Taylor's an animal in there. It would be fireworks. I think that Teofimo is going to be a harder puncher, even up a weight class, against Josh Taylor. But Josh Taylor just has the volume, and his timing is underrated. Sometimes when we see somebody who looks like they've got an onslaught, a cyclone of activity, people will start thinking that they're a sloppy fighter. And yes, Taylor looked very sloppy against Jack Catterall, but I think that his timing would still give Teofimo Lopez problems. And I want to see Teofimo Lopez in not only one, but two fights at 140 before I would like his chances against Josh Taylor. Assuming Josh Taylor is the same guy The same Josh Taylor that beat Regis Prograis and Jose Ramirez. James Backlund said, yeah, that's the way I was taught, that is an illegal tactic to basically lower your head to the guy's waist and hip level. Rocket Andretti, thanks for coming through. Yeah, Rocket Andretti knew the whole time that Haney was going to win. Yeah, there were a lot of people who were more bullish on Haney not only winning, but winning demonstratively. And I thought that Haney would have to win demonstratively to edge a decision. I thought that Haney would have to win a 8 rounds to 4 like fight or a 9 rounds to 3 type of fight to edge a 115, 113 pound scorecard. Hey, Las Vegas Leon, what's going on? Hey, I swear, this guy is like at all the fights. I follow you on social media, and you're always like, just like, chopping it up with one of the fighters or one of the promoters. That's dope. I went to one fight a few weeks ago, Jermell Charlo against Brian Castano too, but you're always out there. I see you. If they make Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford, I'm going to try to go to that fight. I will. I'm going to try to go to that. And I might, the Ryan Garcia versus Javier Fortuna fights out here in LA. I might try to go to that one as well. James said Teofimo versus Catterall would be nice. That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. And Catterall, stylistically, he's a little bit slicker than George Camp. Well, I was gonna make a comparison between Catterall and Cambosos, but I think Catterall is actually a little bit better sweet sciencey in terms of the hit and not get hit nature of the fight. He's a nice technical boxer. I think Catterall is a better boxer than George Cambosos. So yeah, I think Teofimo Lopez versus Catterall would be a good fight. See, Jay Foreman said, like I said, I like Tank's style more than Haney, excitement-wise, but Cambosos knew what kind of fighter Haney is. It was Cambosos' job to make it more of a brawl. Can't blame Haney for that. I agree. I totally agree with that. Haney did what he had to do. And if I'm Haney, I don't leave anything to chance. I don't leave anything to chance to being robbed on the scorecards, nor do I leave anything to chance getting knocked down by this guy. Because if you were winning by a couple rounds and you suffer one knockdown, even if you have success beyond that point, you never know how that scorecard is going to play out after a 10-8 round. So Devin Haney absolutely had to come out of Melbourne this time with those belts. And, because, again, he was and still is contractually obligated to fight a rematch. We'll see how all that plays out as the dust settles. But Devin Haney could not leave anything to chance. He had to win just about every round of this fight. And that's what he did, But I agree. It was not the most pleasing to the eye. But it was lopsided, very lopsided. I didn't expect that. I thought George Cambosos' ambush style was going to give Haney more issues than it did. So we're about to wrap this up in a moment. I want to look at a couple more things and get to some of... Stan Tucker said, Mayweather did the head lowering thing. Yeah, yes, he did. After throwing the right hand, yeah. He would either do the pull counter and throw the right, and especially against Mosley, Robert the Ghost Guerrero, Victor Ortiz before the headbutt, and then the sucker punch, right? Legal sucker punch, but a sucker punch. But yeah, he would throw the right hand and then duck immediately. Was he ducking as low as Devin Haney was ducking? I'd have to rewatch that. But yes, he did do the duck. Good call. Yeah, he was doing that duck a whole hell of a lot, especially late in his career. Wasn't doing it as much when he was Pretty Boy Floyd and, even when he was still on the HBO side of his deal before the Showtime deal. Wasn't doing it as much. Yeah, Inoue, Stoinge. And you got to let me know how to pronounce the Stoing. Thank you for coming through, first of all. But yeah, Inoue was wearing the Reyes gloves, the puncher's gloves. Special punching power. I agree. Heck yeah. Elder Jean-Baptiste said, before I had a problem with the way he lowered, the way his lower body kind of looked fragile and off balance at times. But this fight, he looked more like a professional. You're talking about Devin Haney, right? I agree with that. MAW says, sorry, Will, I realized later and I forgot to talk you up on Boxing Wave. Yeah, MAW and I ran into each other this morning during the Inoue versus Donaire 2 fight because I was in the Boxing Wave channel like MAW was as he was doing a live during the actual fight. So I had the fight on here and I was like, chiming in here. I was not expecting Donaire to get blown out in 2 rounds like that. I knew it was possible, but I thought that it was going to be a little bit more challenging than that. So I was going to get into the Boxing Hall of Fame and its inductees, but they are about to be inducted this weekend. So let's get on that next Tuesday. Talk a little bit Boxing Hall of Fame along with the other topics that we're sure to cover. Real quick before we dip, let's preview a little bit of the action upcoming. We've got Edgar Berlanga, and by the way, I am doing previews for all of these fights. So I'm going to try to drop that, if not tomorrow, then on Thursday. But we've got Edgar Berlanga versus Romer Alexis Angulo. Romer Angulo is the guy who David Benavidez lost the title against, the WBC title against, for the second time by blowing weight, missing weight before his fight with Angulo. He ended up beating the hell out of Alexis Angulo. And this is actually, I believe, Angulo's first fight since that absolute beatdown that went on for way too long. They should have stopped Benavidez versus Angulo like 3-4 rounds before they did. They ended up letting that one go through the 10th round. And you know how Benavidez puts it on the opponent. So being that this is Angulo's first fight back, which he's only lost to Benavidez and Zurdo Ramirez. If it wasn't for that Benavidez beatdown, I would think that Edgar Berlanga versus Romer Angulo might be like very competitive because, Romer Angulo has some knockout power as well. And Edgar Berlanga, we've seen a tale of 2 Berlangas now. We've seen the knockout king through his first 16 fights, first round knockouts for all of those fights. And then his last 3 fights, he's won via decision in all of his last 3 fights. The second of those third fights was a difficult fight against Caceres where Berlanga got dropped. I think that I'm still going with Berlanga, but we'll see. I'll do one more think through on that one before issuing the fight preview. But I'm leaning Berlanga because of youth, because Berlanga has a pretty good jab. He actually does have a power jab. He doesn't vary the speed on the jab too much, but it is a good jab. And I think it's an underrated jab. But it's going to be interesting in the first few rounds to see how he grapples with Angulo's ambush-style aggression. Then we've got Jaime Munguia. Let me see if I turn this on. This is a little bit better. Too bright? Let me know if it's too bright. We're losing a little bit of sunlight here. It is a little bit too bright. Let me see something. Okay. I don't know if that helped. Probably didn't. All right. We've got Jaime Munguia versus Jimmy Kelly. I don't like this fight. I don't love this fight. I knocked the glow off. Yeah, we ain't doing that. Yeah. I don't like this fight at all. I like Jaime Munguia. I wish that him versus Jermall Charlo would have been made. That would have been a fight versus a fight worth getting very excited about. Jimmy Kelly, this is actually going to be up a weight class at 168. It's kind of a stay busy fight. We just saw Jaime Munguia obliterate Demetrius Ballard, another fight that I did not care to see. Gabe Rosado was the fight before that, I believe. Like, the thing is, if you're going to fight like a less than elite opponent, if you mix it up, good opponent, bad opponent, good opponent, bad opponent, then it at least is justifiable. What I don't like is, we've got Jermall Charlo fighting Montiel and then fighting Sulechki. We've got Jaime Munguia fighting Demetrius Ballard and then Jimmy Kelly. Like, no, don't back-to-back bad fight us and expect us to still be excited about your career. And it's a shame because Jaime Munguia is a top-tier talent. And I feel like I've repeated myself on that one a few times as it pertains to Munguia specifically. So I do expect him to blow out Jimmy Kelly with little issue unless he just doesn't prepare. I mean, again, this fight is up at 168. I believe this is at 168, but it's against another natural 160 guy who's going to be fighting at 168. So I think Munguia might approach it like it's an easy fight. So he might be making it a little bit more difficult on himself than he needs to. But I think at the end of the day, because of his punching power, his punch volume, his punch accuracy, a lot of the things I was saying about Benavidez, very different styles of fighters, but they both are very accurate, both have volume, both very durable, both very good endurance, ton of power, hand speed. Like Jaime Munguia, I think, is going to give anybody at 160 problems. But I don't want to see him fighting Jimmy Kelly, that's all. Just like I didn't want to see him fighting Demetrius Ballard. And then we've got Trevor Bryan versus the knockout artist, Daniel Dubois. I don't love this fight. You know, Trevor Bryan's been like this lesser belt holder for like several years. Super under the radar. And he's one of those, you know, sometimes you see heavyweights where it's like, damn, I can't believe this guy's holding a belt. Damn, I can't believe this guy's a professional fighter. Just because they look a little bit like Ophi in the ring, they don't look super coordinated. They don't, I mean, heavyweights, we often see like the body type. It doesn't look like somebody who's a professional athlete to begin with. Not that, you know, Trevor Bryan is like a butterbean build or anything like that, but he looks kind of Ophi in there, but he's got a pretty good jab. And what have we seen about the knockout artist, Daniel Dubois, who they were hyping up in the UK big time, scoring early knockout after early knockout, before he then stepped in the fight into the ring with Joe Joyce, who boxed his ears off behind the jab. Joe Joyce, in my opinion, one of the best heavyweights in boxing. I have him in, you know, probably like a top 7, top 8 heavyweight right now. I think that he'll give some of the top 5 guys issues too. Joe Joyce ended up stopping Daniel Dubois, basically knocking him out with the jab. And it wasn't like one of those put you on your back knockouts, but he basically broke a piece of his face, like messed up his eye with the jab. Daniel Dubois took a knee, said, I ain't getting up. And that was Daniel Dubois' first round, basically derailing the hype train that was Daniel Dubois. Since then, he scored 2 knockouts, one in the first round, one in the second. Now he's going to be fighting the lesser WBA belt holder, Trevor Bryan, whose best win to this date is probably still against Bermane Stiverne. Like against old, not old meaning young Bermane Stiverne, but I mean old meaning recent Bermane Stiverne. He like knocked him out in the late rounds. So Trevor Bryan, I don't see as being a top heavyweight, but he does have a lesser belt, which kind of puts you in line whenever the dust settles out of, in the heavyweight division. Once like Usyk and Joshua get back in the ring, once we know what Tyson Fury's going to do, if he's going to fight the winner of that fight. So Trevor Bryan is in line, but we don't know how long that line is going to be waiting, basically, because there are more important matters at heavyweight than a WBA belt holder that most boxing fans have never heard of before. So he's going to be fighting Daniel Dubois. I'm going to do a preview on the fight. I think that the jab, it's going to be interesting to see how Daniel Dubois navigates that. But at the end of the day, I think Daniel Dubois hits so damn hard. That's the one thing he does have, is a ton of punching power, and he's 1 inch taller than Trevor Bryan. Trevor Bryan is 6'4", Dubois is 6'5". Trevor Bryan gets hit a little too much for my liking. I think I'm going to go with Daniel Dubois via knockout, actually. Yeah, MAW also has Daniel Dubois by knockout. Yeah, Munguia should have fought Andrade. They were both on DAZN too. Yeah, Golden Boy, I don't like how they're peddling kind of slow rolling Jaime Munguia. Like, he's not 22, 23 years old like Virgil Ortiz Jr. is, and they're not slow rolling Virgil Ortiz like they are Munguia. Virgil Ortiz, I think, is going to start fighting better and better fighters. Munguia, we can only hope. He's in his mid-20s now. Yeah, Stonewich says Joe Joyce is a problem. He is a problem. He should have been the Olympic gold medalist probably over Tony Yoka, right? Huge props to Trevor Bryan if he proves you wrong. Yeah, MAW against Daniel Dubois. We'll see. Yeah, if Trevor Bryan beats Daniel Dubois, we'll start having to put some respect on Trevor Bryan's name. I just got tired of looking at boxing scene, looking at all the rankings. They have it lined up pretty cleanly, like WBC, WBA, WBO, and IBF. They'll have like the belt holders, like the super champs, the lesser belt holders, and then like the top 10 ranked guys. I've been looking at this Trevor Bryan name for years now. Right around the time of COVID, or actually right after 2018, COVID wasn't until early 2020, Trevor Bryan went like almost 2.5 years without getting in the ring and still was able to hold on to that lesser WBA belt. So I got tired of looking at the name Trevor Bryan and then seeing he's one of the few guys still promoted by Don King. Take what you want from that, the OG, Don King, one of the all-time great promoters. You know, great in quotes, because promoters, I mean, they promote the big fights, but we just know that there's a ton of shadiness and corruption as it pertains to all promoters, all big promoters. I don't think anybody's hands are clean from, you know, any of boxing's undoings and corruption over the years. But yeah, Don King still has a foot in the game. He's not doing it like he used to, but he's still in there. And Trevor Bryan is one of his couple of relevant fighters that he still has. Jared Anderson is a young heavyweight to be excited about. Dabrowski, yeah, I agree with that, totally. So yeah, I think that's about it for today. Gonna have to hit the road in a minute. I look forward to talking about Artur Beterbiev versus Joe Smith Jr. next week. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm excited about Beterbiev versus Joe Smith Jr. Hopefully they make Spence versus Crawford sometime soon. We'll be talking about the 2022 Hall of Fame. We'll be recapping this coming weekend's activity. We'll be forecasting the next activity. And I'm sure there are going to be many more boxing stories and more news to pop up for us to cover. And we'll do a little bit more of a dive into pound for pound top 10. And by the way, if you guys want to spotlight any particular division, let me know in any of the comments to any of the videos what division you want to highlight, whether it's a division you don't feel is getting enough shine or just a division that you want to hear just, you know, some more talk about and we want to like comment on and discuss more in depth. Because I feel like it's only, like you said, it's only seasonal. It's only like what's happening right now that's getting the attention. So like if there's not a relevant 130-pound fight or a relevant 168-pound fight, not, you know, including Canelo or Benavidez, then it's almost like we're not talking about the divisions. So I'm willing to dive into any of these divisions with you guys. So yeah, let me know in any of the comments what division you would like to cover, or like what legendary or past fighter you want to do a deep dive into on any one of these live chats as well. I did one, I have one video on the Four Kings. I think the video might be called Four Kings, where we talk some boxing history, but I want to dive into some of that as well. But yeah, thank each and every one of you for stopping by this week's episode. Thank you so much to Jay Foreman, Dabrowski, Hot Facts with Robert Reese, Stowenge, MAW. Thanks again. Thanks again for all of you, because I know this it's a lot of multiple visits from you guys, and I truly appreciate that. Thank you, James. What else we got? Brendan Jackson, Las Vegas Leon, Stan Tucker. Yeah, James, Elder Jean-Baptiste, Rocket Andretti, DJ Johnson. Yeah, thank you, Benny Bronx. And thank you also, Tony. Hey, Tony's in the house. Tony Huber, thank you once again for stopping by. And an extra special thank you, because this wasn't the first like attempt at the video. We got knocked off the last stream, jumped into this stream, and we continued. So yeah, thank each and every one of you for that. Can't wait to do this again. Ayano Aishi, Yandere Chan, I think first time visitor, I believe so. And if I'm wrong, no, and I apologize if I am wrong. Thank you for stopping by. Benjamin for stopping by. Yeah, salute to all y'all for sure. Yeah. Growth by Calisthenics. Yeah, thank you for stopping by. Heck yeah, yeah. Peace, peace. I just want to make sure, I'm just going through the comments, seeing who I might have missed. And I'm sorry if I did miss your name. I hope I didn't. And also, if there's another boxing channel that you guys like, that you want me to reach out to maybe do like a split screen session, I know that I want to talk with Hot Fast with Robert Reese sometime soon. I'm going to talk with Stan Tucker, Benjamin Tucker sometime soon. I want to talk with Benny Bronx. I want to also, you know, sometime in the near future, do like, you know, basically spotlight and get you know, some of y'all into some of these discussions, so we could have like a part of a segment where we do a split screen. Yeah, Brandon Jackson said Imran, what was that? Fight TV. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, right? Edward Espinoza. The boxing voice. Yeah, and also if I miss it here, let me know in any one of the comments what channel you would want to see either me featured on, or have them featured on our show. And I know there could be like politics, you know, so maybe not everybody's receptive to it. I get all that, but usually, I mean, people have, you know, shown love. Like Boxing Wave earlier today showed a lot of love. Richard Dwyer is one of my favorite. I'd love to do a talk with Richard Dwyer. But yeah, Boxing Gems. Yeah, I know, James. I know Boxing Gems had popped in on, I think he was popped in that Boxing Wave channel earlier this morning as well. But yeah. So yeah, once again, thank you all for tuning in. Look forward to catching up with you guys soon. And I'll look for you guys in the comments. Heck yeah. Peace.